Sometimes cooking, baking, broiling is just like life. It's imperfect. It goes wrong. You don't have the ingredients that the recipe says. Somebody's forgotten to put some of the items in the recipe. And that can be from a recipe card, it can be from online, it can be in a book. Because don't think that just because you buy a cookbook, everything is correct. So we are going to talk about when recipes go wrong, how recipes can be imperfect. But remember, flow with it. It's like life. It is not perfect. And so we're going to go through and talk about some crazy things that happen. And also, tonight on my live stream, it's the 17th of June, we are going to talk about some of those funny stories. So if you have a funny story about a recipe, make sure you stop in at 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time tonight and share that with everyone. Okay, so let's talk about cooking, baking, broiling, whipping, chopping, shredding, and what can go wrong. First of all, my first suggestion is you got to have the right utensils. If it's measuring cups, if it's measuring spoons, bowls, pots, pans, your oven, your ingredients, your trivets, if you need extra bowls, if you need colanders. Now, I love cookbooks. I seriously do. And I have a lot of them. But sometimes when I'm going through, I may look at a recipe and go, that just doesn't sound right. So I'll pull out one of my other books, try to find a similar recipe. Because perhaps they put, when it was supposed to be just 1 teaspoon, it says 1 tablespoon. But that's just something that I do. Is it right or wrong? It's me being careful. Now, my grandmothers, my aunts, they loved recipe boxes. And when they passed, I got their boxes. Now, some of the recipes are phenomenal. You can see that they collected them out of magazines and all kinds of stuff. But sometimes I have to really question those recipe cards. Now, it is easy to do. You assume things when you are writing the recipe card down. You assume that people know what to do. That's not always the case. This is from my aunt. Every time she made it, starting from 1984, she wrote it down. One time, instead of a lemon pie, she made a lime pie. She wrote that in 1993. I can trust that recipe. But look at this one from my grandmother. 4 cups of sugar, a half a teaspoon of yeast, and this means 2 12-ounce cans of Welch's grape juice. 34 days, bottle. What the heck? That doesn't tell me anything. This one's from one of my aunts. She made the most delicious mincemeat cookies. But look what you can see. She did 1, 2, 4, and 3. So you have to know that line 3 is going to get mixed in before line 4. There's a lot of assumptions. Now, old cookbooks can be really interesting because the way they write it, the things like 1 cake compressed yeast. We don't buy yeast that way now. We buy them in little packets. So you just have to do a little research maybe. See what's really happening. If you've made bread before, it's probably an easy thing to do. But if you've never made bread and it's supposed to be smooth and elastic, what does that mean? Do I need to heat my oven up when I very first start baking? Or does my oven really only take me 10 minutes to heat all the way to 350 degrees? So why waste that energy? So I put my timer on. I turn it on when I'm almost done with the recipe. So I'm not wasting any energy whatsoever. But those are little tricks. And then there's pies. Now it's telling you to use a pastry blender or 2 knives, scissor fashion, and cut the shortening into size of peas. If you have never made a pie crust, you would absolutely not know what to do. Now, one of the great things about a pie is the crust. And honestly, the more you make pie crust, the easier, the flakier, the better it is. But those are things that you just have to learn. And I like to mix it up. Sometimes I'll add a little bit of sugar or a little bit of cinnamon or nutmeg to my crust. if I am going to do it in a hot oven, I am going to actually put aluminum foil around the edges. A recipe usually doesn't even tell you that. So it can be very confusing and very stressful. And then there's meringue. Now, I love the beauty of a meringue, but you know, you're folding the eggs, you're beating them to a peak. These can be issues. This can be stress. This could be why some people will never make a lemon meringue pie. Seriously, it's sad but true. You know, beat the egg whites fairly stiff. What does that mean? How high do you want those peaks? A lot of times it just assumes, recipes assume. Now this is a pretty good one. It has the ingredients, it tells me to sift together. It has other ingredients, it tells me to cream those together. That means I'm beating them in my mixer. When to add the egg yolks, when to add the orange juice. But then it says 2 egg whites fold in. Now, when I look at that recipe, I know I have to beat those egg whites. But if you had this recipe, you wouldn't know that. And so it's just one of those things that you have to realize. And so I don't want to discourage you at all from baking. But baking a recipe is like life. Sometimes it isn't exactly everything that's written down. So, and the more that you do, the more you will realize, okay, this works, this doesn't work. Maybe I should add this. Maybe I should do that. How fine should I chop those nuts? How small should I cut that rhubarb and strawberries? How long should I can that jelly? A recipe will help you. A lot of times, because they are assuming, and if you are a new cook, just take your time. Make sure you have everything ready if you're cooking outside, if you're cooking inside, so that when you're going through the process, you're successful. Now, what if you're making creme brulee? Do you have the tools? Now, this is the trinity of cooking: carrots, celery, and onions. It can make any dinner better. And I have a video actually from years ago that I talked about that. I'll put it in the link below. It can change the taste, the flavors from a good meal to a spectacular meal. And I don't want you to be discouraged, but I want you to be prepared. So that's right. Life is just like a recipe. It can be good, it can be bad, it can be missing things, it can be a lot of stuff. But it is always worth the risk. It's always worth the try to make a perfect recipe for you or your family. Remember, don't apologize when you make a mistake and people are over at your house to eat. Everybody knows these things happen. Relax, enjoy, and have a fabulous time cooking. This is Sandi at Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona. Have a great day.